A long time ago, when the world was just created, there was only the sun, and it was just the day throughout. The sun never set, there was no night, and the people worked and worked until they were too tired to work anymore. So there was no fixed time to work or fixed time for rest. So one day the Creator came down to visit the people. So he saw the men working in the fields. So he asked one of them, "When did you plow this field?" And the man said, "Today." So he asked another, "When did you dig that pit? It looks quite deep." And the man said, "Today." So he went to another one and he said, "That garden looks beautiful. When did you make it?" "Today, of course," said the man. "Why do you ask? There is only today. Whatever happened, it happened today." And then the Creator went to a woman with two small children. One was a little kid and the other one was a baby. So he asked the mother, "When was the kid born?" And the woman said, "Today." "And when was the baby born?" And she said, "Today." Hmm. The Creator understood the problem. The people had no sense of time because there was no division in time. There were no days. The days are all the same. There was no division at all. So he decided to do something about it. So once he went back, he called the sun and said, "You must set in the evening and rise again in the morning. Then the people will not work when it is dark and know that it's a time for resting. And when you rise, they will know that it's another day." So the sun agreed. So that evening, the sun went down and it became all dark. The people did not understand what had happened. It was all dark. They was frightened. They had never seen such a thing before. So they ran here, they ran there. They bumped into each other. They bumped into trees. They fell down. They fell down in ditches and hurt themselves. The children kept crying. The women knocked their vessels in the kitchen and broke them. Nobody knew what to do. Finally, their leader called them all together and said, "I think it's time for all of us to lie down and rest. We can do nothing in this darkness." So they all rested. And next morning, when the sun woke up, rose into the sky, they woke up and it was light again, so they went back to work. And so on. So finally, the people realized that the night was a time for resting. And when the sun came up, it was time to work. So they didn't have to work anymore until they had to drop of tiredness. So they knew that once the darkness fell, they had to stop working because they couldn't see anything. So with the regular work, time for work and sleeping, things were going really well. So almost. Because the darkness, when it fell, was completely dark. They couldn't see anything after sunset. So people hurt themselves, they bumped into each other, they bumped into all kinds of things. They could not see where they kept their things, and it was all a chaos. So next time the Creator visited them and he asked them, "Well, all the things better now that you have time to rest and you have a night. How do you feel now?" So the people said, "Oh yes, we do really feel very much better in the morning, but we cannot see in the night. So we lose things, we hit each other, or we hurt ourselves. It's very difficult for us in the dark. Do you think give us a little more sunlight even in the darkness?" The sun said that the Creator said, "I don't think I should do that, but I'll give you something else. Something which is not as bright as the sun, but something which will give you enough light for you to see, but not enough for you to work or disturb your sleep. It'll have a nice, soothing light, and it will make things much easier for you and stop you from having accidents." So then he created the moon. It rose high up in the sky and shone softly, and people could see, and it didn't hurt their eyes or stop them from sleeping. And then things became very happy for the people. The sun in the day and the moon in the night. Welcome to this session. My name is Kalyan. I'm a creative director of a after school theater program here in Chennai called Reader's Forge. This is a session on moon symbology and significance in folklore and mythology. Let me share my screen for a minute. All right. So today I'm your host, and co-hosting along with me is my student Daphne, who's sitting next to me. And together, Daphne and I have curated a whole list of stories uh, that concern the moon. And along with the two of us, we also have two wonderful storytellers, Divya Anand and Sri Karuna, who will also be joining us with their own set of stories during this session. Okay, so that's the introduction from our end. So as Eric said, let's try this for a minute. Think of all the things that the moon means to you and write it down for maybe a minute or two, maybe two things, three things, five things, it doesn't matter. And what does it symbolize to you personally as a storyteller, or to you in general, just based on your own relationship with the moon? All right, I think it's been about a minute. Would anyone like to share their thoughts? What does the moon symbolize to you personally, and and how do you feel when you think about the moon? Anyone?
Yeah, I think as Nicola mentioned in the chat, the moon symbolizes all the females. It's connected to females ideas and identity, and it's also connected to water, and is showing us the circle of time, the periods of time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, those three good ones. Anybody else like to share? So femininity, feminine energy, water, the circles of time, circles of life. What else? Renu says calmness, coolness, and soft light. Calmness, soft light, and days of fasting. Yeah, that's a very good, especially in the Hindu culture. It's a good one.
It's something ethereal, you know.
Yeah.
a beautiful suspended, illuminated object. And if one wants to be really poetic, then it's like a beautiful lullaby. You can just look at it and be with it. It almost feels like a person, you know, and there is that calm language that it shares with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lullabies. There are lots of lullabies which actually have moon references in them.
Yes. So it feels like that.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
Beautiful.
presence with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ethereal, beautiful presence,
Yeah.
calmness, purity, soul soothing. Anyone else? 2 minutes. Phases of life. Exactly. Inward. Connection to other worlds. Introspection. Inward and introspection is almost the same. Nicola, yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention the connection with wolves, how they howl to the moon, and probably a lot of nature generally, the cycles, it probably has some kind of effect on nature and other animals. I heard a story of a pig in Australia that it was a domestic pig. It was owned by somebody, but it was allowed to roam free, and it used to go down to the beach and people would pet it. And apparently when it was a full moon, it would sing. There's a book about it called the Pig Who Sang to the Moon. So yeah, we have that tradition of animals and calling to the moon, and they say that there's that word lunatic, which implies that the moon also can send us a bit crazy.
Yes, exactly. Good. Those are all things that we do associate with the moon. And like you said, moon does seem to have some kind of strong relationship with the human psyche and the psychology. And although it's never been scientifically proven, it does seem that although most police officers will tell you that things do get a little crazy around this full moon time.
The new moon as well is a very powerful and important time, especially for initiating or making an intention.
Any new thing that you do, you end up doing closer to the newer moon than the full moon. Sorry, Janice. All right, there's a conversation on why we fast on a few particular days within the Hindu mythology. There are certain days where it's recommended to fast. It's kind of a cleanse to pure your body that you do and some of them do fall on the full moon day, or not just necessarily in full moon day, but during different phases of the moon. It's linked back to many different things. So I don't want to get into that level of detail here. All right, so we do have a good set of, let me go back to my slide. So here's what we've learned. The moon is a being of mystery and magic, right? For many, many eons, people look up and they see the moon, they see the star, they see the sun, nature, everything seemed like magic to them. So the early religions and cultures, they all considered these natural entities to be gods and very mysterious being with powerful powers. And so moon has always been considered a being of magic and mystery throughout the history of humankind. And like someone said, cycle of life, right? The moon in many, many ways describes itself to be cyclical in nature, be it just the cycle of life, birth, life, death, and also the various phases of the moon do remind that nothing is permanent. There is something which starts, then you become full, and then you bend down again, and then it becomes into emptiness. And then, or if you take the human life, we're young, we grow up, then we grow old. So it's like the moon, which starts off as nothing and just grows into this full moon, and then again goes back into being nothing. So yeah, so moon in many cultures represents the cyclical nature of life, not just human life, but cyclicality of nature itself. Moon again symbolizes darkness. The moon is the moon because it drives away the darkness, and without the moon, it's the darkness envelops all of us. So also at the same time, like someone said, we do tend to connect the moon with the darker side of our characters, which is where it comes to deeper emotions, right? As in many ways, the moon affects the human psyche, and whether it's scientifically proven or not, it doesn't really matter, but they do tend to have a lot of impact in the way people do behave, especially in the full moon kind of days. And it has been noticed that, like Nicola said, animals too have a very strong relation to the moon, and they tend to their behavior tends to be very reflective of what's happening on the moon as well, the phases of the moon. And this is another important thing that people notice about the moon or associate with the moon, the concept of renewal, right? I think someone said that. Every day at night when the moon comes, we sleep, and we wake up in the morning, we are refreshed. So in a way, a moon symbolizes renewal of life, renewal of many things in nature. And again, this also goes along with the moon's different phases, right? The whole concept of the waxing to the full moon and bending down to a new moon, it does create a cycle of renewal throughout. And moon symbolizes also eternity in many ways. Although the moon doesn't always seem to be in the sky for us, but it has been there forever throughout the history of Earth. It's been a permanent member of the Earth family. So now the moon was created almost at the same time as the Earth, which is like what 4.5 billion years ago. Whereas humanity, for all its worth, it's only been around for about 200,000 years. So it's been there for a long time. And someone said inward introspection and soul soothing. Yes, in many cultures and the moon is considered to be a symbol of creativity and imagination. It's more intuitive compared to the sun. A sun's energy is considered more logical and rational, whereas the moon's energy is considered to be more creative and full of imagination. And that's one of the reasons why the moon is associated with many creative arts, like music and poetry and painting. And it's also associated closely with the subconscious mind and allows us the time for reflection and contemplation. For many people, moonlight kind of is a way for them to sit and reflect and contemplate on what's happening with their lives. So yeah, so these are some of the main popular symbolisms of the moon as taken from various cultures. But the other main thing that someone has already spoken about is femininity, right? The moon is considered a feminine energy. The sun is hot and bright, but the moon is cold and not as bright as the sun. And it is given that it is linked to the cyclical changes of nature and life, the various phases representing the various phases of life, the moon itself is considered a symbol of feminine energy. Now, we'll go a little more deeper into this a little while later. I have a separate section on why the moon is considered feminine. So we'll talk through that in a little while. But before that, since this is an event on storytelling, not just paper, so we are going to do a little more in depth on what are the various types of moon stories we have in folklore, in mythology. So one of the most popular types of stories that we have is the creation of the moon, right? Where you just heard one story from me, which is from the Indian culture about how the moon was created to help people see the dark. Now there are a variety of stories of similar kind in various cultures. Time permitting, we'll cover some of them at some point. Now next one after that, the more common stories are related to the phases of the moon. Why does the moon have phases? Or because when ancient people looked up and saw the moon changing size and shape over a period of time, they had to come up with some ways to tell themselves that there's a logical reason of to why it was happening. And they came up with a variety of stories across a diverse range of cultures. So eclipses is another set of stories where a lot of ancient cultures have their own set of reasons as to why eclipses happen. Now, there are some, we of course know some of them, but as I started researching for this session, I realized there's pretty much one story per culture, and there are hundreds of stories which are not always the same in terms of why the moon has phases and why we have lunar eclipses. And this is the most popular of them all. Why the moon has spots, right? Did you know that according to a story in Siberia, the moon is scarred because they are made by fang marks left by Alkla, a monster with a huge black wings. It's a personification of darkness of the sky. It feeds on the moon every month, slowly nibbling at it until it disappears. But the moon does not agree with the monster, who vomits out into the sky little by little, eventually recreating the full moon. So a very small story, but it covers two of these set of stories within that. One is why the phases of the moon, and other is why the moon has spots. So we have a few more. So we are going to cover a lot of these stories during our session slowly as we go along. So moon spots. There's another interesting story I thought I should share with you, which I found very recently about the moon spots. Something I had never heard of before. Probably if someone is here from Scandinavian region, can probably tell me if it's true or not, because it's only something I found recently. So, two kids, Huki and Bill, were sent up the hill to fetch a pail of water from a magical well. That does sound very, very familiar, isn't it? So, apparently, the rhyme, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, was based on this story. So, these two kids, they went to the magical well to fetch a pail of water. But as they were going there, they were spotted by a man who carries the moon in his chariot every night. So he stole the two kids, put them in his chariot, and carried them away. And ever since then, when the moon is full, you can see both Jack and Jill in the moon, along with their pail of water and the pole. Now, I've still heard of stories of moon spots where there's a man in the moon, there's a rabbit in the moon, there's a three-legged frog in the moon. But this first time I actually heard of Jack and Jill being in the moon, which is, yeah, something new to me.
Uncle K.
Oh, yeah, Daphne, what is it?
Oh, I think we have a problem. There's an emergency.
What is it, Daphne?
The moon has fallen into the well.
Did you say the moon fell into the well?
Yes, I swear, I just saw it in the well.
Oh, no. Isn't it what some Nasiruddin Hoja once went through? He thought that the moon fell into the well, right?
Yeah, I know that story.
And how does it go again?
Um, One night, Nasiruddin Hoja went to the well on the outskirts of the city to draw some water for himself. So as he took the rope bucket and was about to release it into the well, he saw a glistening white image of the moon in the dark waters. He said to himself, "Oh no, the moon has fallen into the well. What am I to do now?" He panicked, for he really thought that the moon had fallen out of the sky and into the well. He thought hard and he thought for long, and then he decided, "Of course, I have no other choice. I will have to pull the moon out immediately and put it back in the sky." Saying so, he went back to the city and bought a rope with a hook fastened on one end. He brought it back to the well and tied the other end of the rope tightly to a huge rock which was a few feet away from the well. The Haja then tossed the hook into the well. It went into the water. He pulled it out and tried again. It still only went into the water. He tried once more. Finally, the hook got caught on one of the stones in the walls of the well. Feeling satisfied, the Hodja started to pull on the rope. He pulled hard and he tried his best, but to no avail. The moon was still in the water. He finally gave one hard, long tug and snap. The rope split in two. Ouch! Startled and thrown off by the force, the Hodja flew from the ground and fell on his back and looked up at the night sky. And there it was, the moon, bright and brilliantly shining in the heavens. The Hodja smiled to himself and joyfully cried out, "Praise and honor Allah! I might have injured myself, but at least the moon is back where it belongs." Saying so, he got up from the ground and happily skipped back home, not even bothering to check once more in the well, where the moon was still there, the glistening white image of it shining in the dark waters.
Wow. But wait, shouldn't we have some kind of a message from the story? What do you think?
I never heard of a moral.
How about the story of the monkeys from Tibet? Do you remember?
I don't know that story, actually.
All right. So this is the story of a set of monkeys. This is a Tibetan story, and here's how it goes. So once, a long time ago, there was a whole group of monkeys in the forest. Oh, 1 second. So one night, as they will, they were playing around, they were jumping around, they were pulling each other's tails, and as they went through the forest, they came across a well. Now, these monkeys had never seen a well before. They didn't know what it was. So the youngest of them, he jumped onto the wall of the well and looked inside. Deep inside, he saw something that scared him. He started screaming, "Everybody, come here! The moon is falling into the well! The moon is in the well!" So all the older monkeys gathered around. They sat on the wall and they looked in, and there was the moon inside the well. Now the monkeys didn't look up, of course. They all thought the moon lived in the sky, and they're now worried. What are they going to do? the moon is stuck in the well, what will happen when it gets dark? How will they see anything? So then they decided it is our job now to find a way to get the moon out. We have to rescue the moon and bring light back to all the forest and the world. So they sat and they discussed. How do we do it? We're monkeys. So then one wise monkey or so, it was said, do you not know? It's very easy. As monkeys, we must form a chain. And once we form a chain, we go reach deep into the well and pull the moon out. So they formed a chain. The first monkey hanging on the branch of a tree. And the second monkey held the first monkey's tail and was hanging on to it. And the third one hanging on to the tail of the second one. And so on. So the chain became longer and longer and longer. And as more monkeys started getting added to the chain, the branch slowly started to bend. And as monkeys kept adding to the chain, it finally broke. Crash! They all fell into the water and were drowned. So one of the deities who watched this from the heavens said, when the foolish have a foolish leader, they all go to ruin, like the monkeys which wanted to draw up the moon from the well. Okay, so where were we? We were discussing types of moon stories. And guess what? The last thing in moon stories is rescuing the moon. Now, those are the two stories that you heard, which are in line with the rescuing of the moon stories. Now, we were talking about moon spots before we started, so I would like to go back to that quickly before we move on to our next section. So moon spots, like I said, some people say there's a man on the moon, or there's a rabbit on the moon, or like I said, there are multiple animals, foxes and deers as well. Now here we're going to bring you a few stories, very short ones, showing stories from various cultures on what causes the moon spots. So we have Daphne here, who's going to tell us the first story.
So I'm going to be telling the story of the boy on the moon, which is a North American folktale. Once, in the far north, there lived a boy who had magical powers. He wanted to use his powers to hunt deer along with the hunters of his city, but his father refused to give him permission to do so. The father said, you must not use your powers now because you must grow old and wise enough to use them for the correct purpose. But the boy begged and cried, but the father still refused. Finally, the people of the village took pity on the poor boy and asked the father to give him permission to use his magical powers. The father finally relented. Oh, the boy was pleased, and for some time he used his powers well and good, helping the hunters of the city return with deer meat. Then one day, the boy was looking up at the moon and he said to his father, I want to go to the moon. I might want to live there someday. The father said, well, son, you may want to go to the moon, but it is of no matter, since no one can travel to the moon. The boy said, I will find a way. I will use my magical powers, and if I disappear someday, you will know where I have gone. Well, some time passed, and then one day the father woke up and called to his son, but he got no answer. The father started searching in the houses and the surroundings, but the boy was nowhere to be found. Later in the morning, he found that high in the smoke hole of his house, hanging on the lodge pole, was one of the boy's pant legs. It was then that the father remembered what the boy had said to him about wanting to go to the moon. That night, when the full moon rose, the father looked up at the moon, and there was his son, standing on the moon, looking down at the earth. Now, if you see the full moon in the sky, you can still see the boy on the moon. His right leg is bare. It's because when he shot up through that smoke hole so fast after wishing to go to the moon, it tore one of his pants fabric off. And so far, his powers have not been great enough to return him back to Earth. And that is the end of the story of how the boy got to be on the moon.
Wait, wasn't the boy supposed to be crying?
Yes? No, I never heard of such a thing. He just wished for himself to go to the moon and that's it. Abracadabra.
Okay, maybe this is some other story that I'm thinking about. Wait, oh yes, this is a story from Algeria, where long ago there lived a boy who was sad all the time. He lived alone, he had no friends or family. Now, though he was unhappy, the boy did not cry any tears, for in those days there were no tears on earth. So when people were sad, they were just sad. They couldn't shed any tears. So one day, the moon saw how sad the boy was. So it took pity on him and he floated down, down, down to the earth and came to rest beside the boy and said, "Oh child, you do not have tears to show your sadness, but I have come here to help you. With me by your side, you will cry. Tears will come out of your eyes. Do not let those tears fall on the earth. Let your tears fall on me, and I'll take them with me when I return to the sky." That the boy began to weep. He sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and great tears, salty tears, rolled down his cheeks. The boy's tears were the first tears on earth, and he did not let the tears fall on the ground. Rather, his tears fell upon the moon. And the moon waited and held the boy until he was completely out of tears. And then the moon blessed the boy and said, "From this time on, people will love you. You will no longer be alone and sad. And when you do shed tears, in time, the sadness will go away." After that, the boy was loved by everyone. He grew into a man, he had many sons and daughters, and when the moon went back into the sky, it carried tears with him. And as it travels across the sky, and on full moon nights, you can still see some of those tears. Two of them, as they say, right there, spilling out of the moon's left eye. And next time you see the tears on the moon face, remember to tell this story to someone else. So, those are a couple of stories that talk about why the moon has spots. Okay, as we go along to the session, there are a lot more stories that we will cover in different phases. Similar stories on how or why the moon is supposed to have spots. So I think it's right now time to move on to our next section. Before that, I thought I should finish this section. Okay. Let me call on Divya. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Okay. So joining us today is Divya, who is going to be covering the Hindu mythological stories of the moon. So Divya is going to tell one story and Sri Karuna is going to tell one more. They're going to cover the Hindu mythological aspects of the moon as well, and what it signifies to all of us. So once this is done, I have another section on other cultures and other gods and goddesses across different cultures. All right, Divya, Take it away, please.
Thank you, Kalyan, and thank you, Daphne, for those lovely stories. Hello, everyone. Divya Anand here. And yeah, let's jump in straight away. Om Chandrama Ayatanavan Bhavati Yachandramasahaytanam Veda Ayatanavan Bhavati Apo Vai Chandramasahaytanam Ayatanavan Bhavati Ya Evam Veda Yopamayatanam Veda Ayatanavan Bhavati. The moon is the source of water, and one who knows this becomes realized in oneself. Water is the source of moon, and one who realizes this becomes realized in oneself. And one who knows the source of water becomes realized in oneself. This is the essential idea of that mantra. In this case, the water here bears relation to the actions of a being, because water flows, just like how water flows, actions also flow. So that's the parallel that is there. The moon, Chandra, as he is called, is effulgent, he's radiant, and he emerges from the ocean's waters during its vigorous churning. And thereby he is associated with water. And he's personified as the cool one, the chilled out one. The luster, as many of you pointed out, is very soothing to the eyes. And he rules the mind. He represents the mental potential of a being. He has another name. He's also known as Soma, Soma being the divine elixir. And just as how an elixir relaxes a person, brings some kind of calmness and solace sometimes, the moon too is perceived in the same way, bringing a sense of calm and tranquility. Needless to say, the moon has immense and significant prominence throughout Hindu scripture. And the story I'm presenting today is a very well-known story of Ganesha and the moon. Many of you must be aware of the story. I will present it in my own style. And later we will just touch upon the symbolisms. So here goes, Jai Shri Ganesha. Ganesha is the god of wisdom, intellect. He's the patron of arts and sciences, and he's remover of the obstacles. And he's the first receiver of our offerings to make any occasion auspicious. For kids, he is the playful, the chubby, the very, very bubbly elephant god. And yes, does he love food? His favorite being the modaks, or the sweet coconut balls. And in general, but he loves food, you know. So we have, during pujas and festivals in our houses, we have a lot of delicacies made. Sweet, savory, snacks, salty, everything. The story goes that one time the Lord of Wealth, Kubera, decided to throw a grand, lavish ceremony and a dinner party, if you may call it, and invite all the gods and goddesses and all the celestial beings to enjoy this party. But his intention was not to be hospitable to them, but to brag about his wealth, to show off his valuable belongings and his grand palace and his riches and all that, in the hope that the guests will be awestruck. So he invited everyone, and finally invited Lord Shiva and his consort, Devi Parvati, as well. Now Lord Shiva being Lord Shiva, he understood what Kubera's motive was, and he said, thank you for the invitation, Kubera, but I have some other plans made that day, and I will not be able to make it. But you know, Ganesha will be a representative of the household, and you may invite him. So Kubera went on and invited Ganesha, who happily accepted, knowing Kubera's motive as well. And Kubera went on to make arrangements for this ceremony. And on the day of the the dinner ceremony, all the guests started trickling into the palace. And what a magnificent palace that was. Oh, astounding. There were winding staircases and gleaming chandeliers and grand fountains and artwork across the ceiling and oh, what not. And then the guests were led into a very big hall, a dining hall, where the tables were slightly of low height and they were golden tables. And there were silk mats laid on the floor so that they could sit and eat comfortably. And on the tables, there were golden plates and silverware and exquisite cutlery and whatnot. And then the dinner started to be served. Now, the thing is, the variety of food across the Indian diaspora, that is amazing. That is across, as much as across bordering states, we have different kinds of food. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and list a few. So there were the modaks, the essential modaks. Then there were the appams, the halwas, the ghee sweets, the milk sweets, and all of that. Then we always have a soft corner for this, the fried items. At least I do. The puris, the kachoris, the vadas, the bhajis, the pakoras, and what. The rices, the tamarind, mint, coriander, curry leaves, everything, pulaus and all that. The chutneys, the pickles, and the pudding varieties, the kheers, the paisams, the pradhamans, the whatnot. And there's one particular thing which is specific down south. It's called panagam, since we are essentially talking about coolant, the moon being cool and all. It's called panagam. It's jaggery water, which acts as a very good coolant during summer. So yes, panagam. And there were a lot of exotic varieties of fruits and vegetables. Oh, you say, no, I'm not going to go further because my mouth is watering. So yeah, there you get the idea. So everybody was eating happily, relishing every morsel of food. And Ganesha, who had also got his vehicle, Mushika, he wasn't eating like that. With one swoosh of a trunk, everything was vanishing from his plate at one gulp. And then he waited for another round. And then the second serving came. And again, in a blink of eye, it was all gone in a one swoosh. Kubera called his head cook and all and said, you station 3 or 4 people next to Ganesha. You can't go back and forth because he's eating too fast. And now roughly about the 11th or 12th serving, everybody had finished. But Ganesha showed no signs of stopping and finishing up. And by now, everything in the kitchens was getting empty. The head cook went and whispered into Kubera's ears, the granary is getting empty. There's not enough food. There's shortage. Now, this was an ego issue for Kubera. What would he do? He said, bring up, cook up whatever you can find, cooked, uncooked, sweets, vegetables, fruits. Go hunt all the go-downs and storehouses and then bring everything and put it onto Ganesha's plate. So everybody ran helter-skelter and brought everything and put it there, and it was gone in a blink of an eye. Well, now Kubera didn't know what to do, and there he was. He noticed Ganesha with a smile and small smirk at the corner of his lips, and he knew something was wrong. So he just bolted out of his palace and went to Kailasha and went and fell at Lord Shiva's feet. Oh Lord, something is not okay. You know how Ganesha is behaving back home. What do I do? And Lord Shiva said, well, you were not sincere in your attempt, were you? Your intention was not to be hospitable. Your intent was to brag about your riches. Especially when in Indian culture, we believe Atithi Devo Bhava, which means Atithi is guest, which means the guest who comes home is personification of God himself. And here he was literally God himself. And Kubera shamefully hung his head down and said, yes, my lord, I am guilty of the thought. Well, what do I do now? So Lord Shiva said, well, all you need is a handful of puffed rice and you will go and place it in Ganesha's plate. And there also, there was a tinge of Kubera's ego that sprung up. Oh, just puffed rice? I will have about 2 or 3 sacks. Like, not 2 or 3 sacks, just a handful. That will do. But offer it with the sincerest of your thoughts. Okay, said Kubera, and bolted back to his palace and got a handful of puffed rice and served it to Ganesha. And now Ganesha knew. And then he didn't do the swishing of trunk and all. He just took one morsel properly in his hand and ate, and took another mouthful and ate. And he was happy and he got up. Everybody heaved such a big sigh of relief. It was truly an indication that Ganesha was happy. So yes, Ganesha walked out of the palace, thanked Kubera. Kubera repented for his mistake. And then Ganesha and Mushika, his vehicle, walked out. Now, all said and done, in this process of trying to teach Kubera a lesson, Ganesha definitely had overeaten. And he was finding it difficult to walk. So he was wobbling and walking. And the Mushika too was wobbling and walking. And after a while, Ganesha said, Mushika, could you please carry me on your back like you always do? Mushika was like his pet. So he took a few liberties with Ganesha. He said, oh, carry you like I always do. Well, if you had eaten like you always do, I could have carried you like I always do. But no, you have to empty Kubera's entire granary in order to teach him a lesson. No, sorry, I will not be able to carry you. Ganesha said, please, Mushika, don't do this. I would like to sit on your back and count. Mushika had no choice. After all, he was Ganesha. So Ganesha clambered onto Mushika's back. And carrying that weight, they went forward with staggered movements. The moon was shining in all his resplendence. It was full moon day, and the forest was lit with bright moonlight. And suddenly from nowhere, there was a snake that slithered across the path. It went. And that was a snake. And Mushika, being a mouse, he was naturally afraid, and he let out a big gasp. And there, whoop, Ganesha toppled off his back. And Mushika fell onto this side. Ganesha, being that chubby being he was, he bounced off like a ball into the bushes. Mushika was this side, Ganesha was this side, and the snake was in the middle, gaping at what just happened. Ganesha slowly gathered his wits and came back. Mushika was still feeling dizzy. Ganesha looked at Mushika and said, why did you throw me off like that? Mushika said, do you even hear yourself? I barely have the strength by carrying you on my back. I did not throw you. Didn't you see that snake slither across? Ganesha said, oh, yes, I did see that. You have a point. Yes, you better see my point, he said. And then he looked at the snake and said, snake, why did you have to cross the path like this? Because Ganesha was actually a little agitated. He just wanted to go home as fast as he could and lie on his silk bed, overeaten and all that, right? The snake said dolefully, Ganesha, this forest is where I stay. You are the ones who are crossing my path. Ganesha said, that also seems to be a fair point. All right. But then he suddenly started to feel a little rumble and tumble in his tummy. Now, it happens to us, right? At least I should speak for myself. Normally, I have these overeating bouts, but still there is room for a little last scoop of ice cream. And then I scoop it, and then I have to sit in the chair and in the car like this with my back arched. Or if I would have a belt, I would have to loosen it. Now, Ganesha, he didn't have a belt to loosen, but he wanted a belt to tie so that he won't, embarrass himself because of any stomach bursting episodes. So in a flash of quick thinking, he grabbed that snake, put it around his waist, tugged at the head and tugged at the tail and knotted it up, barely leaving space for the snake to breathe. And while all this was happening, there was a loud-throated laughter that came from somewhere. Ganesha looked at Mushika and said, Mushika, how dare you laugh? I am in agony and you're laughing at my expense. Mushika said, please, Ganesha, I don't even have the strength to walk, breathe, sit, anything. I won't laugh, and that too, that's a loud-throated laughter. I didn't do that, please. So then he looked at the snake and said, did you laugh? The snake said, I can't even breathe. You've barely left enough space for me. No, I can't. I didn't laugh, sorry. And then they heard it again, that loud-throated laughter. And this time Ganesha looked up, and there he was, the moon, laughing uncontrollably, very, very heartily. Ganesha looked at him and said, oh, why are you laughing like that? And the moon burst amidst a burst of laughter. He said, I just happened to witness such an amazing, a rib-tickling scene in front of my eyes, you know. Ganesha was irritated. Rib-tickling, you say? Yes, of course. Is it not hilarious? I mean, think about it. You go to a feast and you don't know your appetite levels and you eat everything just because you have to teach somebody a lesson. And then you come wobbling on the road like a bouncy ball. And then you poor snake that was going across your stomach is going to burst. You take it and tie it around your waist. I mean, think of it. It is extremely comical to watch. I actually fell off from where I was. You fell literally, but I almost fell off from the sky. Oh, Ganesha had it. He didn't like this one bit. He angrily moon, I am that you will disappear. Moon was still continuing in his laughter. He didn't realize. He said, aha, oh, what did you just say? So I am cursing you that this pride of yours, because of your moonlit and all that, the brightness that you carry, you will go into darkness and you will disappear from the sky forever and ever. And that was the time it hit Moon that he had probably taken it too far in his taunt with Ganesha. Huh? You are cursing me? Of course I am. Oh, Ganesha, please. You know, it happens. I started saying something and I didn't know where to stop. And extremely sorry. Please forgive me, oh Ganesha. Literally, please forgive me. I need to be around. You know, the tides in the sea have to go around the earth, the almanac. So much depends on me. Please don't make me disappear from the skies. Ganesha stood there grimly like that. Now, you know, when we have trouble with the kids, we run to the parents for help. Just like that, the moon rushed to his father, Lord Shiva, for help. And he said, oh, Lord Shiva, what do I do? Ganesha has cursed me. Lord Shiva said, well, the curse is there and it cannot be undone. But what you can do is, what I can do is reduce the intensity of the curse and make you disappear for a few days gradually, not at once, but gradually, progressively, and for 15 days. And the next 15 days, you will come back to your full size. That can be done. I will give you refuge. I will protect you. And that is how the moon sought refuge in Lord Shiva, who protected him by placing him on his crest. And that is why Lord Shiva came to be known as Chandrasekhara. And Ganesha, while he was getting angry at the moon, happened to hurl his tusk at the moon, because of which it's said that the moon has craters. And that is how the waxing and the waning of the moon is said to have come. And Lord Shiva is said to have gotten the name Chandrasekhara. Chandra is the moon and Shekhara because he kept him in his head. So Chandrasekhara Mashraye Mama Kim Karishyati Vaiyama, which means that one who seeks refuge in Chandrasekhara, not even Yama, the god of death, can do him harm. So that was the story of Lord Ganesha and the moon. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the moon bears an analogy to the mind. And just as how the mind is fallible, It has its ups and downs, and it's impulsive at times and it's steady at times. We see that the moon too had, a time of, he made an impulsive remark, a hasty retorted Ganesha. And as a measure of repentance, he is prompted to seek refuge in the divine, whereby he is brought back to the path and his purpose, to have his purpose cut out. Yeah, so we do that sometimes, and as a matter of realizing, we could reach out to the divine for us to be brought back into path. So that is how I chose to interpret this. And the sun symbolizes constancy and consistency and persistence. How the persistent heat is there, whereas the moon symbolizes regeneration. Obviously, we know that. Renewal, rebirth. And a very obvious form of highs and lows. It's a constant reminder of this too shall pass, because if there was darkness, it will pass and you will be led to light. Yeah, so it's a constant reminder of that. Other than this, of course, there's such a personal connection that we all feel with the moon. A great deal of romance is woven under moonlit skies, they say. And, the beloved is compared to the moon, the face is compared to the moon and all that. So like, Chand mera dil, chandni ho tum, chand se bhi dur, chandni kaha. Innumerable songs in so many languages and across cultures have this parallel. And it provides for such an ideal and serene setting, for any kind of companionship to blossom, whether it is lovers or whether it is friends or family, sitting in a moonlit sky, under a moonlit sky or under a terrace. And especially mothers feeding their children by showing them the moon. In fact, we have that down south where it's called Nila Choru. Nila is the moon and Choru is food. So the mother shows the moon and feeds the child by telling the child stories about the moon. So it's a very, very, very personal kind of feeling that we get. And of course, he's called the mama or the uncle because Devi Lakshmi is supposed to be the universal mother who emerged from the ocean. And moon also emerged from the ocean, so they're considered to be siblings. And therefore, he's like Chanda Mama. So he's the quintessential uncle for everybody. So it's like a personal connect. Okay, so yeah. As a small activity or a very small exercise, there's something called Chandra Bedana Pranayama. Now, it's a disclaimer. I'm no yoga expert. I learned this from a teacher. So, and this can be done at any time of the day if you are on an empty stomach. And people who with respiratory ailments are not supposed to do this. So it goes like the left nostril is used. It's like a regular pranayama, except that you do it with your left nostril. Inhale through your left nostril and exhale through your right nostril. Retain the breath for about 3 or 4 counts, and you can do that. If anybody wanted to try, we could do that a couple of times now. So we'll do this. Retain for 3 or 4 counts. And exhale for 6 counts. Again, inhale for 4 counts. Retain for 3 counts. And exhale for 6 counts. Yeah, so this can be done for about 10 counts. And this is supposed to be coolant to the system. It cools the system, it de-stresses you and all that. So there's so much of connect with the moon. It's like in our system, we grew up with it. So yeah, that's the regenerate becoming the very significant objective here that I carry away from this. In a lighter vein, if you were to look at it as a limitation, not so much, but if you were to, Mondays being named after the moon does bring a lot of blues for everybody. But then, in the words of the legendary Shelley, If Mondays are here, can Fridays be far behind? Thank you.
That was a wonderful. Yeah, I love the description of Nilashoda, right? Now, Chandamama Rave, Chabili Rave, Kondeki Rave, Gokupul Deve, Chandamama Rave, Chabili Rave. Now, this is a song my mother used to sing to all of us, and I heard it like 1,000, more than 1,000 times because I have two siblings, and she would sing to them every night when they're feeding them and putting them to sleep. Now, Chandamama, like you said, means Uncle Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does have very, very personal recollections and personal attachment when it comes to some things. Yeah, so thank you, Divya.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are running a little late, actually. I thought we might not have enough content. Apparently, a lot of content. So I'll quickly rush through a few more stories. Before we get to the next section, I'll rush through the sections as much as we can. And then we have another story from Sri Karuna, who is a superstar. She is doing 3 sessions today, one after the other. All right. So quickly, we were actually talking about the moon stories, right? There are a couple of stories, maybe one of them that I think we should do, which is the why the moon has spots type of story. Daphne will take us through the Japanese story.
So I'm going to be telling the Japanese folktale of the rabbit on the moon, an iteration of how spots are on the moon. So one day, the man on the moon came down to earth disguised as a beggar. He chanced upon a fox, a monkey, and a rabbit and begged them for some food. The fox immediately ran around the place and then came across a stream and then caught some fish from it and returned to the beggar. The monkey ran upon all the trees, jumping from branch to branch, collecting all the berries and fruits that it could find, and came back to the beggar. But the rabbit, no matter how much it hopped around and searched with frantic eyes, all it saw was the plain, fresh green grass that grew from the ground. So he asked the beggar to build a fire, and when it was built, the rabbit ran towards the flames and jumped into it. Amazed by the rabbit's generosity and sacrifice, the beggar changed back into the man on the moon and pulled the rabbit from the fire. And he said, "In return for your kindness and sacrifice, I will take you to the moon to live with me." So he took the rabbit and went to the moon, where they to this day live together. Now, on the full moon, you can still see the rabbit there, pounding mochi on the moon. This tale has been turned into a Japanese folk tale with so many retellings and versions over a span of many years, but its roots have actually been traced back to being a part of the Jataka tales from Buddhism, where the companions of the rabbit actually vary. Sometimes monkeys and foxes, and then so many other animals. So from there, it has been turned into a Japanese folk tale that you just heard. So.
All right. I thought we should do the story because it has this story which we listening to quite a lot in India because it has some Indian elements to it as well. All right. So quickly moving on to the next section, which we sorry. All right. So why is the moon feminine? This is something we talked about when we talked about the various symbolisms of the moon, right? Since we don't have a lot of time, I don't know if you want to discuss this, but I'll keep moving on so that we get back to some of the stories in the later part of the session. Okay. So in terms of why the moon is considered feminine, one of the primary reasons is its passivity, right? The moon gets the light from the sun. There's no light of its own. So as William Shakespeare put it, the moon's an errant thief and her pale fire snatches from the sun. Uh, uh, so that's one of the reasons why in many cultures moon is considered feminine. The other, of course, is the pale pallor of the moon. In Western cultures, in most Western art, the female beauty is often associated with pale alabaster skin and the color of the moon and the beautiful silvery shiny light that the moon gives out. So that's one of the reasons why moon is also considered feminine in cultures. Of course, the main reason is the whole concept of lunar cycles. Now, in many cultures, lunar cycles are linked to the menstrual cycles and the entire concept of the circle of life. And many cultures actually have shared words, linguistic roots of the words that stand for menstruation and moon across various cultures and languages. So, so why is the moon feminine? This is one of the primary reasons why in many cultures moon is considered the whole concept of now female reproduction cycles and all that and cycle of life. It's one of the reasons why moon is considered feminine. But apart from that, does anyone know what this is? Does anyone know what this symbol stands for? Any ideas? Okay. Have you heard of this concept called the Great Mother, which is from prehistoric time? The archetype of Great Mother is that it's a female energy, which is the supreme consciousness and supreme power in the world. Now, there is this concept called triple goddesses, right? Three goddesses who merge together into a single goddess at some point. It's there in Hindu mythology as well. So we have Lakshmi, Parvati, and Saraswati who combine to form the Supreme Shakti. Now, in many scholars consider the moon concept linked to the concept of the triple goddess. Now, it is meant to indicate the various temporal stages of growth, right? It's the beginning, middle, end, or it's the birth, life, death, past, present, future, across a various and variety of cycles of life. Now, one of these concepts was brought about by an author called Robert Graves in his book, The Triple Moon Goddess, the White Goddess, in which he postulated that the whole concept of the triple goddess was a female deity associated purely with the moon. So, in this concept, he says the three triple goddess, the tripartite elements of this triple goddess is one is the maiden, the second is the mother, and the third is the crone. Now, the maiden represents a young girl, right? So it represents inception, it represents promise of new beginnings, birth, youth, youthful enthusiasm, and it is as represented by the waxing moon. And the mother represents fertility, stability, power, life, and a full moon. And this is represented by the full moon, as you see. and it's associated with the color red. And the crone is the old lady. She represents wisdom and death and endings, and is represented by the waning part of the moon phase. And together, these three are the triple goddess concept of the moon goddess. Now, some of this will again repeat it when we talk about moon goddesses just in a short while. So, so this kind of concept is found in Christianity as well, when the Virgin Mary has sometimes been linked to the moon, where in Christian iconography she's been portrayed as standing on top of the moon in the crescent form, right? It's probably inspired by the passage in the Book of Revelations. So yeah, so this is again a concept which has been there for a long time. The concept of a triple goddess, where the waxing, waning, and the full moon are meant to portray different phases of life, and especially the female life. And that's one of the primary reasons why in many cultures, the moon is feminine. But that said, there are a lot of cultures where the moon is considered male, including the Hindu mythology. And it is in many cultures where the moon is considered male, the sun is actually female. One exception, of course, is the Hindu culture, where both the moon and the sun are considered as male. So, I had a few more things I thought I would discuss it with it, but we are running a little late. So I'll quickly move to the next section, which is the moon goddesses. Now, across cultures, right from when people looked up and saw the moon, everyone since then, some thousands of years ago, there have always been gods and goddesses associated with the moon. And the most popular ones are from the Greek and the Roman mythology, right? We have in Roman mythology, we have Selene, who is the great goddess of moon. But along with Selene, we also have two other goddesses associated with the moon in Greek mythology. The first one, so Selene is the goddess of the goddess is regarded as a personification of the moon herself. So she's traditionally sister of the sun god Helios and the dawn goddess Eos. But then there are two other goddesses who have also been linked to the moon in Greek mythology.
So one of them is Artemis, who in ancient Greek mythology, she was considered as the goddess of the wilderness, wild animals, hunting, nature, vegetation, childbirth, care of children and women, and chastity. She was also a patron of healing and disease, especially regarding with women and children, saying that she could bring good health and illnesses to both women and children. She is one of the most venerated Greek goddesses in being worshipped throughout of Greece, and her most famous temple at Ephesus was one of the ancient seven wonders of the world until it was burnt down. But the thing is, no have actually in Greek mythology have been found of her being a lunar deity, but since she is correlated with the Roman goddess Diana, who is in Roman culture associated with the moon, she also has now come to be known as a lunar deity, having connections to the moon, though originally she had no relation to the moon. So, Artemis is one.
So the other one, Hecate, is the most complex of all the goddesses that we have in the Greek Roman mythology. Now, Hecate in the Greek mythology had no lunar aspects at all. She was originally considered an aspect of Artemis herself before Artemis was included into the Olympian pantheon. And some of the darker aspects of Artemis were then passed on to Hecate. But other than that, though they're considered as three different moon goddesses. The primary goddess in the Greek mythology for the moon herself was Selene. In the Roman mythology, the Selene's contemporary Romans, as you know, came after the Greeks, and as it so happened, they actually took over a lot of Greek gods and made them their own. They gave them new names, but most of them had traditionally the same functions as the Greek gods. So in Roman mythology, Selene became Luna, and essentially the same person as she was in the Greek mythology, and she's complement of the sun god Sol, and the whole concept of the triple goddesses actually started was in the Roman mythology with Luna, Diana, and Hecate, especially Hecate herself being considered a part of the triple goddess. So Luna is the one who's equated to Selene in the Roman mythology, and then we have Diana, who is the more popular of all the lunar gods in Roman mythology.
So Diana is a goddess in Roman and Hellenistic religion. She is primarily considered as a patroness of the countryside and nature, just like Artemis, and also for hunters, wildlife, childbirth, crossroads, the night, and of course the moon. She is, she takes on a lot of parts, her core parts from Artemis, the Greek goddess, and she absorbed much of Artemis's mythology early when the Romans were just beginning. So by the 3rd century BC, after Greek influence had like this huge impact on Roman religion, Diana had almost been like fully combined with Artemis and shared almost all of her characteristics with her, both spiritual domains, what they were the goddess of, and their appearances also. And she was originally considered to be a goddess of the wilderness and of the hunt, which was a central sport in both Greek and Roman culture. So Diana is also a goddess who is associated with fertility in childbirth and the protection of women during labor. Maybe probably as an extension of already being associated with the moon and the lunar cycles and stuff like that.
So this is something actually we see across cultures. Most lunar goddesses are associated with fertility, childbirth, well-being of women and children across multiple cultures. So Hecate, again, back in Roman mythology, they didn't even change her name this time, was the ultimate form of the triple deity, triple goddess, as we spoke about, where she was combined with Luna, Diana, and together the three of them formed the Trinity of goddesses. So anyway, moving from here, we have got some stories for some of these goddesses and gods that we are going to discuss here. So we don't have a lot of time to go through all of them. So we'll probably cover just a few of them in as quickly as we can before we move on to the next story.
The first of these from Africa is Abuk. She is the first woman in the midst of the Dinka people of South Sudan and Ethiopia. She is the only well-known, well-documented female deity of Dinka. She is also the patron goddess of women and also gardens. Her symbols or emblems are a small snake, the moon, obviously, and sheep.
Then we have Amisemi from the kingdom of Nubia. She is the protective goddess of the Kushite kingdom and the wife of Epidemic, the lion god. Now, then we have Mahu Lisa, who is the creator goddess associated with the sun and moon in the Dahomean mythology, where Mahu and Lisa are divine twins. And according to myths, Mahu is actually married to the male god Lisa. So we have Gleti in Dahomey.
So Gleti is also a moon goddess in Dahomean culture. which is now Dahomey, is the kingdom of Dahomey is currently situated in Benin, which is a small country in West Africa. So in this mythology, she is also considered as the mother of all stars. And in this culture, it is considered that an eclipse is caused by the shadow of the moon's husband. When he crosses her face, that's when the solar and lunar eclipses happen. So, and then we have Coyolxauhqui from Aztec culture. She is the daughter of the priestess Coatlique, and she is the leader of her brothers, like 400 Huitznaua, which is in their culture called Sensdon Huitznaua. So there is actually an interesting story of how Coyolxauhqui became the moon in the sky. So Uncle K will tell that to us right now.
All right, just before we start, some of these names are very tough for me to pronounce. I did do my research and I did practice some of the names, but if I make any mistake, please forgive me. This story is from the Aztecs. Now, Aztecs, Incas, and Mayans had female gods. Some of them actually even had male gods at the same time. So this is a story from the Aztec era of Coyolxauhqui, who was the moon goddess among the Aztecs. Now, on the summit of Coatepec, or Serpent Mountain, as it's called, there is a shrine for Coatlicue, the skirt of the serpent, the maternal earth deity. Now, one day, as she swept the shrine, a big ball of hummingbird feathers fell from the sky. So she picked them up and she placed them on her waist. And then, as a result, she became pregnant with the Aztec deity Huitzilopochtli. Now, her miraculous pregnancy was an embarrassment for Coatlicue's other children, including her eldest daughter, Coyolxauhqui, which actually means painted with bells. Now, hearing of a pregnancy, the Senzon Huitznahaus, or the 400 Huitznahaus, who are the brothers of Coyolxauhqui, and led by her, they decided to kill Coatlicue as they prepared for battle and gathered at the base of Coatepec. One of the Senzon Huitznahaus, he went and he warned Huitzilopochtli of the attack while he was still inside his mother's uterus. Now, hearing of this attack, the pregnant Coatlicue miraculously gave birth to a fully grown and armed Huitzilopochtli, who came out of a womb wielding his shield and his darts. And a fierce battle ensued, and Huitzilopochtli killed Coyolxauhqui, beheading her and then throwing her body down the side of the Coatepec mountain. And as for the brothers, the Senzon Huitznahaus, he scattered them in all the directions on the top of Coatepec, and he pursued them relentlessly all the way to the south. Now, according to some legends, Huitzilopochtli tossed Coyolxauhqui's head into the sky, where it became the moon, so that his mother would be comforted by seeing his daughter in the sky every night. And then his scattered brothers, the 400 of them, became the southern stars in the sky. Okay, so apart from that, we have a few more. We'll take a break here, and Sri Karuna, I think, has to leave in some time for our next session. So, Sri, are you ready with your session and with your story? We'll move that and then we'll see what we can finish up with that. Let me.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
So today, the story I bring is narrated by Vaishampayan to Janamejaya in the Shaila Parva. Shaila Parva is the 9th book in the Mahabharata. All of us know that Ramayana and Mahabharata are two great texts when it comes to Hindu mythology. And so this story is taken from there. As Divya narrated earlier, this story is also about waxing and waning of the moon, how it came about. It also came through another curse. But earlier, if it was Ganesha's curse, let's see this time whose curse it is. Brahma, as we know, is the creator. Like, he created the whole world, and as Shiva is known as the destroyer and Vishnu is known as the nurturer. So like that, it used to happen. And during Brahma's Manava avatar, he had Daksha as his son. Daksha Prajapati, he was known as. So Daksha Prajapati was the son of Brahma. And Daksha had lots of daughters. As in one of the Puranas, we know Daksha's one daughter, Sati, was the wife of Shiva before Shiva married Parvati. So Daksha had so many daughters. Among all his daughters, he got 27 of his daughters married to Chandradeva. Moon was called Chandradeva. And when he got all his 27 daughters married to Chandradeva, like a true father, he asked, "You will not show any difference between all of them. All of them are my daughters, so you will love them all with equal love and equal affection. You will not love one daughter more or one daughter less. You won't show any differentiation with your love and affection." Chandradeva agreed to it and promised that he will abide by it. And one fine day, Chandradeva wanted to do Rajasuya Yagna. This is called Yagna, is a holy offering where holy fire is lit and you offer ghee and other auspicious things into it. And based on the Yagna, there are a lot of powers one person gets. So he wanted to do the Rajasuya Yagna, and he goes to Brahma to invite him for the Rajasuya Yagna. After going to Brahma, he also goes to the Devalok. Devalok is the where all the gods are there of the fire god, Agni Deva, then the Varun god, that is the god of rain, and all Kubera, god of wealth, and all other gods, and the god of all gods, like who is headed is Indra. And when he goes to invite Indra, Indra was very happy with Chandradeva, and he says, "I will send Brahaspati." Brahaspati is the head of the priests and who does the sacrificial rituals in the Devaloka. So Brahaspati was called the Deva, Deva Vachaspati or Devaloka sage he was. And in those days, both men and women, they had equal rights. And when they have equal rights, when somebody is performing any ritual, the wife had to be there next to them for them to do their ritual. And then when Brahaspati comes to perform this Rajasuya Yagna, as the sacrificial things were happening day by day, not day by day, hour by hour, the moon started looking so mesmerizing, so beautiful. His beauty just started increasing by the hour. And when his beauty started increasing, all the celestial women who came from the Devalok, everybody started falling in love with the moon. But among them all, Tara, the wife of Brihaspati, she fell head over heels for Chandradeva. And after the Yagna is over, and when this is all happening, all the Devas saw what is this happening. They were very angry. They got from the Yagna and left. And then Brihaspati also left calling Tara, but she refused to go. And then Brihaspati sends messenger to Chandradeva. please send my wife back. But Chandradeva did not send Tara back. He said, I'm not keeping her by force. She is there by her own will. Then Brihaspati did not know what to do. He not only lost his wife, but also he lost his job. As I said, the rituals are supposed to be performed together along with his wife by his side. So all the Devaloka rituals came to a standstill. And then Indra is worried now. Then when Brihaspati requests, you do something to bring my wife back, then Indra comes down. And Indra comes down and he asks, Tara, you have to return because all the rituals of the Devalok have completely stopped and Brihaspati needs you by his side, to perform these rituals. Tara was blindly in love with Chandradev. She said, no, I don't want to return. I love him. Then Indra was getting angry. He asked Chandradeva, ask her to come. And Chandradeva says, you are telling me this? You have forcibly went towards Ahalya. I am not keeping Tara by force. She is staying here on her own will. And Indra threatens Tara. The consequences will be very, very wrong. And if the rituals in Devlok are stopped, everybody is going to suffer, including Chandradeva. Then reluctantly, Tara agrees to go back. But when Tara agreed to go back to Brihaspati realizes that Tara has conceived. He asks her, who is the father? Tara says, it is Chandradeva. Brihaspati doesn't want to raise this child. Brihaspati is actually Jupiter and Tara means a star. So in this story, we have the planetary positions and everything. And then this son of Tara is known as Buddha, who is the planet Mercury. And Brihaspati doesn't want to bring up the child of Chandradev. Then he says, send him back to moon. And Tara reluctantly gives him back to the moon. And now these 27 wives of the moon have to take care of him. But everybody is not big-hearted to take care of somebody else's child, isn't it? So only two of them, Kritika and Rohini, they take care of the kid. So Chandradeva shuns all the other 25 and he starts paying his attention to these two women who are taking care of the child. Among these two also, more than Kritika, Rohini looks after the child more affectionately and Chandradeva's affection for Rohini grows all the more. And when this 25 daughters don't get the love of their husband, what will they do? They will go back to their father to complain. So they all go to Daksh to complain and Daksh says, well, I will warn him. He warns Chandradeva a few times and Chandradeva is not willing to listen. And what will Daksh do? He curses that you will get kshay. Kshay means deterioration. And day by day, the moon is shrinking. And the moon is shrinking and completely, like it was on the 14th day, he's shrunk so much that hardly a thin line is seen. And then he rushes to Brahma, please save me. Then Brahma says, first you go and apologize to Indra. He will go and ask Indra. Indra says, you have actually done so much of unjustness. You have to accept that. You were cursed earlier by Ganesha and then Brahma and then now Daksha. So I can't help you. He goes back to Brahma again. And the Brahma says, look, it is beyond this one to advise Daksh because he will not listen to me. He has on his own acquired so much of might that he is proud. He will not listen to me. The only person who can save you is Shiva. Then the moon goes rushing to Shiva. And Brahma also advises him, do the Mahamrityunjay mantra. He does that on Shivratri day and he prostrates himself before Shiva and he says, please, please, please save me. I will do whatever you tell me to do. I will not do. I agree that I have been at wrong. I should have sent Tara back, but please, please forgive me. Then Shiva lifts up the moon and keeps it on his locks of the head. That's why moon is called Chandra and Shekhara means peak. That's why he is called Chandra Shekhara. And he says that I cannot completely undo the curse of Daksh. So, but I can promise that as you have deteriorated till this day, you will not completely disappear. You will again gain radiance day by day, day by day. So 14 days you will deteriorate. That's called as Sukla Paksha. And 14 days you will again increase to a full moon, and one day you will be your full complete radiant self. And that full moon day is called Paurnami. And that day, whereon after 14 days, he was almost disappeared, that day is called new moon day, and it is Amavasya. Just like the sun signs, because of the placing of all these wives and all these planets, there are planetary positions, and these planetary positions keeping themselves around the moon in all these days of the lunar calendar give the moon signs. So when a baby is born in India, the nakshatra is seen, which star, which planet is there, and that nakshatra is based on the moon signs of the child and not the sun signs like the Western symbology. So this is the astrology. Actually, I wanted to sing this song, Chandamama Rave, Jabilli Rave. We all grew up like that. Chandamama is male, again, Jabilli is considered female. And as Divya has sung, there are so many songs comparing the female beauty with the moon. The best one, my most favorite one is Chaudavi ka chand ho. Why? Because on the 14th day, just before the full moon, it's almost full moon. That's why it's called the Chaudavi ka chand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sri. That was a lovely story. And see, within one mythology itself, we have two stories for the same thing. And same is the case across other cultures and mythology as well. Sometimes you have multiple gods for and goddesses for the moon itself, and there are multiple stories for the origins of the moon and the phases of the moon, and of course the another story, of course, which is very popular in Hindu mythology is that of the lunar eclipses, right? The story of Rahu and Ketu, which unfortunately we don't have time to cover.
Ketu. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have time to cover that. All right, so we're running out of time, and well, let me tell you this. Daphne and I had prepared almost 20 plus stories to tell in this session. Some of them were short, 1 minute, 2 minute story, but still I don't think we are going to do even half of them today. So we have another 7 minutes left. So let me quickly take the story of the two stories which I thought we should cover. So let me quickly do that. Sri, you have another session, right? Thank you so much, Sri, for all.
I'll be off camera, but I'm here. I'm here.
For people who are not aware, this is Sri's second session for the day. She just finished one session from 3 to 5 for the Hindi storytelling. 5 to 7 she's here, and she has one more session from 7 to 9 where she's going to tell another wonderful story about some powerful women. Thank you so much.
It's also from mythology, Sita and Ahalya.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let me add Daphne back. Okay. We were looking at this, and we have actually multiple stories that we thought we could share. We would have the time, but we don't. So we're quickly going to showcase two stories I thought which are important and which are actually quite popular. The first one is that of Shang Yi, which is who is one of the moon goddesses in Chinese mythology, and Daphne, take us to that, please.
So once upon a time in China, there was a hero whose name was Hu Yi, who was excellent at archery, and Chang Yi was his wife. One year, the 10 sons of China rose into the sky together, causing great disaster on people, scorching and burning everything. Yi shot down 9 of the 10 sons and left only one so that light could be spread all throughout the land. and the mortal admired Yi and sent him the elixir of immortality. He did not want to leave Chang Yi's side and be immortal without her, so he asked her to keep the elixir safe. But an apprentice of Yi, Peng Meng, knew this secret. So, in the Chinese calendar, the 15th of August, when Yi went hunting, Peng Meng broke into their house and forced Shang Yi to give the elixir to him. Shang Yi refused to do so. Instead, she swallowed it and flew into the sky. Since she loved her husband and wanted to stay close to him as possible, she chose the moon to stay. When Yi came back and learned what had happened, he felt so sad that he displayed the fruits and cakes that Shang Yi liked in his yard and started making sacrifices for her. The people who were close to him also were sympathetic to Shang Yi and started taking part in these rituals with him. They burnt incense on a long altar and prayed to Shang Yi, now the goddess of the moon, for luck, prosperity, and safety. And so the custom of praying to the moon on Mid Autumn Day has been handed down for thousands of years since that time.
The Mid-Autumn Festival is actually very, very popular. One of the biggest festivals in China, and not just in China, but also in many, many East Asian countries. Even in India, actually, we have this harvest festival, Onam and Sharad Purnima, which actually come around the same time. Maybe not exactly on the same dates, but but many of the South Asian and Southeast Asian countries, the harvest festival is a big thing. The mid autumn harvest festival, which is related to the moon. All right. So, sorry. Okay. So we're not going to cover any more of these because we don't really have time. But across various cultures from different regions, and this list is not exhaustive actually. As I said, I picked up only the more interesting ones, the ones with stories that we could tell. So we have a variety of moon goddesses across from different ages and different cultures and different regions, and they all kind of have similar entities, right? They are meant for well-being of women, children, fertility, more or less. Now, there are other cultures where the gods are male. So the most popular ones, of course, we have Khonsu in Egypt. Khonsu is a popular god, and he's also popular in currently, Marvel has a series called yeah, Khonsu, and those who've seen the movie, sorry, never mind. So anyway, so in this, among the moon gods, there is one story I thought we will tell you, which is the Aztec god Tecatl. Again, forgive me if I don't get the names right. I've written it down somewhere. Yeah. All right. So here we go. This is probably the last story. This is a story of why you see a rabbit on the moon. And it's also a moon origin story. Okay. So long ago, in the Aztec world, the gods tried 4 times to get the sun in the sky, but each time the sun disappeared. The first 3 times, the sun was lost due to windstorms and jaguars and fiery rain. The 4th time the sun came up, it was washed away by a flood, and people turned into fishes and spread all across all the world's oceans. So now the world was again back in darkness, it was cold, and all the Aztec gods, they came together and tried to think of a way to get a new sun back into the sky. So as they were discussing, one of the gods said, "We must build a big fire, and one of us must throw ourselves into the fire." And everybody thought it was a great idea for someone else. And finally, there was a god who was always proud of how powerful he was. His name was Tekuisis Tekatl. And he said, I will do it. I'm very powerful. And when I become the sun, I'll be more powerful than any other god in the world. But then there was another god who also put his hat in the ring. He said, I'm not so powerful. And it's true that I've been sick and my body is covered in sores, but I'm a good person. I want to help everybody. This one was called Nana Hautzin. So the gods built a huge fire and they danced and drummed and danced around the fire for 4 whole days and nights. And on the fourth night, all the gods arranged themselves into 2 lines. Tekuizetl was chosen first. So he pumped himself up and he ran towards the fire. But when he got to it, he stopped. He looked around and said, I'm afraid. But they asked him to try again. So he did. And again he stopped. And again and again. For 3 more times. But then they said, okay, let's give a turn to Nana Hautzin. So Nana Hautzin stood at the edge of the lines. He ran between the gods, and when he got to the head, he jumped into the fire with a shout of joy. And then he rose up into the sky and became the sun. Now, Tekuizetl, he was so ashamed that he was scared. And when he saw Nana Hautzin jump into the sky and become the sun, he too thought, no, I have to do this. So he leaped into the fire, and another huge flaming sun was up in the sky. The gods looked up and said, wow, this is so good. We now have 2 suns. But then one of the gods said, wait, it's not fair. Tekuizetl has no right to shine as brightly as the brave and noble Nana Hautzin. So that god, he picked up the round-eared rabbit and threw it at Tekuizetl, and spinning across the sky and landed hard against him and knocked some of the light off him. So Tekuizetl became the moon, or La Luna, and Nana Hautzin became the sun, La Sol. And when there is a full moon, the outline of the rabbit the god threw at Tekuizetl can still be seen. All right, with that, I think we come to the end of our session. We had a lot more to share, but unfortunately, we don't have the time. So thank you so much, everyone. We had a few more things, and of course, we thought we will talk about moon myths, but some of you have already covered that. So I think we are good here. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you, Daphne. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Sri. And we had a wonderful time bringing this to you.
Thank you so much, Kalyan, and thank you all for being here. Kalyan and Daphne. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kalyan and team. That was really fantastic. Thank you, Daphne. And thank you, Divya. Wonderful.
And Sri as well. Sorry.
Yes, I beg your pardon. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I think we bit off a lot more than we thought we could do because, like I said, we had, 2 of us were prepared to tell about 20 plus stories, along with the stories from Sri Karuna and Divya. But nevertheless, there's a concept that mattered to me. I like the whole concept of how moon is an important part of us, and how I wanted to go and explore what people spoke about the moon right from the old prehistoric ages, and that's what we did. And I learned a lot during this research.
Great. Well, thank you for doing all this research and for sharing it.
Thanks, Eric.
Great work. Okay, now we'll stop the recording.